Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, the podcast where we delve into the world of CMS systems and their crucial role in website and web content development. In each episode, we'll explore the reasons why founders, CEOs, CTOs, and CMOs of web content development companies need CMS systems to thrive in the digital landscape. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind successful website management, content creation, and seamless user experiences. Here's your host, Jonathan Ames.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, a podcast by ButterCMS. Today, Tanu Javeri, the global head of search at Foundry, is going to share her insights around internal linking. Welcome, Tanu.
Thank you for having me over.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. You've had a great background. Tell the listeners a little bit about some of the SEO projects and brands that you've worked on.
I am one of those people who you would call started our SEO journey as soon as Google was launched. I know I'm aging myself here, but I'll feel very proud of having been associated with this industry since the time we had the blue links in SERPs. Yes, that's how we started all with the keyword stuffing, the concept of keyword, moving to actually understanding what the users need, all the algorithm changes, the penguins and the pandas. We've survived all of them, and then it also happened to survive this year. This year has been phenomenal when it comes to search industry with all the changes that have happened, both from an algorithmic perspective as well with the AI developments. In terms of my career, I have been fortunate enough to work on the agency side, consulting side, as well as in-house. Some of the brands that I've worked with have been J&J, Citibank, some of the insurance clients, as well as my most recent and my last job was at IBM. I was heading the IBM Cloud SEO initiatives. And now I'm with Foundry, which is a good intersection of technology and media. We have about 47 publications across the globe. So think about language, think about global reach, and having an intertwined strategy of SEO and web delivery for that is where I fit in. So that's been my experience.
That's a really great background resume. I think one of the things that was hardest when I first talked to you was thinking about there's so many different things that you could talk about in SEO. What is it going to be? You made that easier for me. You're like, let's talk about internal linking. So tell me about this idea of what the role of internal linking is in SEO from your perspective.
You know, think of it as how would you find the content? We always need a link that leads to where the content is, whether it be, did we Google find it, or did the search engine find it, or did my user find it? So for me, I almost feel like our websites are like maps, and the links that we create are our roadways or our highways. And we tell both the search engines as well as the users how to navigate the path to find the content on our website. So it's almost like, back in the day, we had the paper maps. Now we have the GPS. It's like, okay, you can turn right here to find X exit. So, the road signs that says the X exit, that is your anchor text. You're telling your user, if you click here, if you head this pathway, this is what you're going to find. So for that reason, I think internal link building has a very, very crucial role. A lot of time it's at the back end of everybody's thoughts. We tend to pay a lot of attention on the page speed, the technical build-up, where we talk about how content should be written. But we forget that the content has to be searchable, have to be somewhere we can arrive to. And how do we do that? Only and only if the link is available and the link is crawlable and it is clearly mentioned as to what that link is.
Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned the user experience with internal linking, because most of us, when we think from an SEO background of internal linking, we think of, no follow and getting rid of certain links so you have a clear cluster. But there's also the user journey internally, and how do we direct people from one piece of content to the next in a way that they, like you said, know where they're going to go, and also that we can take them to the place that's going to be most productive for them. So talk about this idea of user experience and internal linking.
So whenever I am looking at a piece of content, I always say, let's put ourselves in the user's shoes. How do we navigate? When I am trying to search an information, how will I navigate across? And also, most of us have had that point in our time when we are reading an article and we like something else that was mentioned in it, and we click through it and we go through that rabbit hole of that discovery. Why do we do that? We do that because it's intentional. It is that information that we need. It's that user intent. So when we are talking about internal link building, there is certain keywords which, have a certain search volume, or we may think that this is a higher page and, this page is not receiving so much love. So let's connect it. Or we just wrote a story and we want tons of eyeballs on it and let's connect it to everything. But that's not going to be fruitful for a user to read it. Even if, let's say, they click through, they might probably bounce back or leave the site completely, right? It has to be relevant to what the user was looking for. It has to have that intent that the user was looking for in information. Now, we're talking about SEO. So think about if we have an article, the pillar page for SEO, and that has a link going to an SEO keyword tool or how a keyword research is done. So I would say, I understood what is SEO, but now how do I conduct a keyword research, or how do I find the right kind of tools? I may click through that article and read. And that increases the dwell time that we have on the site, which the search engines like. That means we have user engagement. So at any point of time when we're thinking about internal link building, we should think about the user journey. Are we providing our user the desired information that they're looking for?
Yeah, I love that you brought up the idea of engagement. That years ago, that wasn't something that people thought about together with SEO, but now engagement on the site, how long they stay, how deep they go, does have an effect on your rankings. And so your ability to bring in more people. So with that in mind, the idea that there's this important user side as well as the Googlebot side to internal linking, how do you align internal linking strategies with the broader SEO objectives?
That's a very great question. Thank you, Charles, for asking that. I think we have to walk on the dual stick or on the bridge, trying to balance ourselves. That are we doing this for Google to find us? Are we doing this for the users to find us? But I think if we actually keep the journey of user in the mind and making sure that they've reached the content that we desire to be seeing, it makes it very easy for us to plan for Google. Now, for search engines to be able to crawl our site, we have multiple methods. We can think about top navigation. We can talk about our footers. We can, depending upon the site, we may have the right rails. We may have, you can read more kind of sections. Even if you think of, somebody comes to your homepage and the homepage is sections, there are blocks. Each block is a component, and what is clickable in that component or what is not allows the user to navigate into the site. That's the same thing Google uses to understand how to crawl your site as well. With the way you develop the hierarchy on each level of this clicks, understands that, okay, this is an important place to begin the journey, and anything below this link is related and is connected. So it's like connecting the dots. Another way that Google actually finds our links is through sitemaps. A lot of times we just don't pay attention to how we are creating our sitemaps. We just say, okay, just bunk up these 10,000 URLs and put it into sitemap 1, and sitemap 2 is the next 20,000. But if we actually consider how we want to place our sitemaps in groups of associated content, it could be based on the navigation style. It could be based on the kind of content you write. Maybe there are multi-language availability on your site. So it could be a language bucket. It could be the type of content that you share. Maybe there is a video content. Maybe there is textual content. So paying attention to those and providing those links allows Google to search your website more efficiently, and that increases your index. On the flip side, there is also the things that I don't want Google to find, right? Privacy policy. It's also what our users use. They might be using internal search, which is good for their functionality. We have to understand what element of our websites are functional and are there to ensure the user journey continues without a mishap, without us losing them somewhere. But they don't necessarily create new content that needs to be indexed and displayed on search. So to keep our crawl budgets down, to make sure that we are ensuring our crawl depth, we say, Google, don't look at these links. Yes, they work for my user, but I don't want you to see because that's not changing any piece of content that is available on my site. Those are functional links.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings up a good point of crawl budget. For those who don't know, crawl budget is just basically the idea of Google only has so many bots it's going to send to your site. So if you have a really big site, they're not going to crawl it all at the same time. So your crawl budget is how much the bots have allotted to your site. So if you know what that is and you're getting close to the top there, you want to, like you were saying here, cut off certain parts of your site that are low value so that you'd have the option to have your site crawled for the high value pages. Yeah. Important. So as far as, for those who don't know, how would you tell if your site is getting close to your crawl budget? For those who are not familiar with that.
There are multiple ways to look at it. You can, of course, go to Google Search Console. That is the platform that Google provides us. So we can go in and see our crawl frequency and crawl budgets. We can also see the number of pages they have indexed and they are displaying in the SERPs. And so you can kind of understand that, okay, I have, as you said, large websites. If I have 100,000 URLs on my site, but they've only indexed maybe 20,000 or 50,000, we want to know why are they not able to index or understand what my content is. Is that something that we have done on our side, on a development side, where Google can't crawl it? Or are they maxing out because, they come to some place and there is no link and we are breaking Googlebot's journey. So they come and they land up in a dead end and they can move forward. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way would be any tool like your Screaming Frog. You kind of have a way as to how far your clicks away are each content piece. So you understand if you're going much, much deeper, as you said, deeper content, the crawl depth goes down. And that's when you say, okay, they are coming in, but they're getting again lost in that navigational map that we had. Did we make the pathway clear enough for them to actually get to all content? Or are we finding that some content is far, many, many layers below and doesn't seem to be performing very well on search? They're getting no impressions, or maybe they're not even ranking in the top 100 pages. And that's where you kind of gauge that is a content that is not receiving the attention it needs.
That brings up the next question. I guess you mentioned, some of the pages not getting a lot of traffic. What are the ways you assess the value of those internal links? Is it just, was there a lot of traffic here, or we're ranking, or what are other ways you assess the value of an internal link?
There are 3 or 4 parameters that we should consider when we are thinking of internal link building. You're right. It's getting a lot of traffic. That's an important page. It's good. Spreading the love from that page would be good. Normal way to think of it would be that if we get 100 clicks on here, and even if we get 10 clicks out of that to the next page, we're getting 10 additional page views. So that's a good way of beginning where the analysis should start. But beyond that, we should also think about, are we wanting to create a topic cluster? So is this topic important? The page is receiving traffic for it. It is a pillar page. And then we want to create a cluster from it that creates a distribution of the link juice. The other metric would be, I would see if they are receiving any backlinks. Again, what is that page authority of this page? Is it valuable? And we find that sometimes we have written really excellent content and it's neither received the love from the users nor from Google. And then we say, what happened? And that's where I might say, okay, there is this page which is relevant. It has a lot of backlinks. It has a lot of traffic coming in. Maybe we should connect the two to have that conversation so that there is some authority that passes through. The other way to look at it would be, how many internal links does this page have? A lot of times when we write new content, what we do is we remember to create internal links on that piece of content. So that means there's a new content. We made sure that it's linking to at least 2 or 3 pages on the site, but we forgot to link anything to it. So actually going back into your other work that may have already been published, you have to go back and say, is there a place where I have to create links to this? Otherwise, there is nothing pointing to it except probably the navigation sitemap and footer. And that puts it very, very deep to be found. So those kind of analysis are required to gauge where it is. It's the depth, it's the traffic, it's the external backlink, and of course, predominantly how relevant it is to the topic.
Got it. Those are all good ways to measure these backlinks then. So what are some of the common pitfalls that you find happen in internal linking that you think people get wrong all the time and need to remember?
I think I just cited one, right? We make the page and we forget about making sure that it's receiving some love.
Yes.
So that's one. The other things that I have observed, and some have happened this year too, and especially with a lot of AI chatter. And I think if you open LinkedIn on any given day, I'm sure there are 3 or 4 such stories that are there that folks have actually created systems to create links on the page. So there are links on the page, but they necessarily are not relevant and not contextual links. What I mean by that is think about the copy that you have on the page. Relevancy is a key factor for internal link, but that relevant link does not sit in this content, but sits external to the content. So there is a right rail, there is a read more, there is a top navigation, there is a footer. There were sites who boasted of saying that they received tons of traffic because they inserted 2 or 3 links in the footer of the site, and these were artificially inserted, dynamically inserted. They have no relevancy to the page and they were just created. Yes, they got a boost, but also when the algorithm changed at Google, these were the sites which got hammered with penalties. So shortcuts never work. Let me put it that way. That's one. The other thing that I feel is that we know we need to create internal links, but we forget where to place them and how to. We tend to use more generic terms. If I say click here, I don't know, it could be interesting to go down there and see what it is. But if I say find your SEO tool that would best suit you, you're going to click through that because you just read what SEO is and you wanted to know about the tool. And if I said this link, this passage that you would click through takes you to that section. So that anchor text and the text that you actually place the link on does matter. The last one I would say is that we don't go back and do enough internal audits. Any organization, business in general, right? Because that's a living organism, I would say. And that means content will get launched, campaigns will be sunsetted, things will change, a new product is launched, some products are sunsetted, and that leads to 404s on your page. Those pages will be removed. So there should be thoughts on, okay, we sunsetted something. Did we remove all the internal links that was pointing towards it? Because now we're breaking the user journey and the bot journey. So some of those pitfalls tend to be overlooked most often, I would say.
Yeah. No, those are key points, especially the larger your site, the more likely you'll have outdated content, broken links, and a number of downsides to that. Besides, just the SEO impact of it, there's also just the user impact is nothing worse than really being excited about clicking a link and then you get a 404 or another piece of data that, is either outdated or is not what you were expecting. So yeah, bad experience there. So we talked about pitfalls. What about best practices? When you're talking about structuring your internal links and your anchor text, you mentioned one of them there, making really compelling anchor text that makes somebody as a user want to click it. What are other tips you give?
I think actually, why do you want to do an internal link, right? That's the fundamental question that we should be asking. When we think about what the strategy is behind, are we driving a certain kind of content? Are we driving a certain level of conversion, or are we driving a certain level of traffic? So understanding that element allows us to choose the kind of pages that need to talk to each other or connect to, or the hierarchy of the internal link. I think a lot of times we misread that. We don't put very thought behind as to why this link should exist and what we want the users to do. If we have that thought process correct, we would get the right anchor text and we would get the right text. And we would also choose the right URL where the user journey should go to. So, and like any other big enterprise, and of course with Foundry, we have such a large publication industry. So to making sure that the next article that we take our reader to is actually relevant. because we're generating article or content almost on a daily basis. And then where do you find that they don't get aged out? So those are some of the things that we have to think through. Other piece that for best practices that we should think about is actually going back and checking that when you did the internal link that we did we get that second page click? Did we make sure that Google was able to crawl through? A lot of times the way systems, and this is a more on the technical side, the CMS side, we make errors in how we link. So maybe the user journey doesn't get broken. They can click through and go through, but because of JavaScripting and the way we created it, we did use the absolute URL, or we use the staging URL. And guess what? Google cannot crawl that. And then we broke that journey. So sometimes we have to kind of see where are we inserting it, and are we inserting it in the system, the technical system that we need it to be. So those are a few things that we should watch out for.
No, those are good points. I know in the audit, when our team has gone through internal links, just looking from time to time at the paths, we intend them to go in a certain direction, but often they don't go where we intend them to go. And that also can be informative, because if they're not going where we want them to go, but somewhere else, what is that somewhere else? And what does that tell us about what they think their journey should be versus what we as a company think?
Right. If you have taken them to a page and they are using your search, your internal search, and trying to find another page and then scrolling and picking a different page, that's a telltale sign. So, we have a lot of platforms of analytic tools that we have, depending upon the internal search system that you're using. They might be giving you reports on where the user is going. But if you're using Adobe Analytics or if you're using Google Analytics, that allows you to see that as well as to what the second page view was. Gauging those metrics allows you to say, okay, these two topics are relevant, and that is where the traffic is going together, and maybe we should connect them. And maybe the current internal link that we have placed in the system, on the page or in the content, does not resonate. Nobody is clicking through. Yes, Google can crawl it and, complete its journey. But here the user journey is getting broken. So it's always, whenever we are trying to do internal link building, we're kind of, again, going back to that, dual status. Are we making sure the user journey is not breaking? Are we making sure the Google journey or the bot journey is not breaking? So those are a few things that we have to think of.
Those are excellent points. So, Tanu, obviously you've had a lot of years of experience finding these pitfalls, fixing these pitfalls. Let me ask you a question that's kind of career focused now. If you could go back in a time machine, meet yourself at the very beginning of your career, what have you learned now that you didn't know then that you would tell yourself?
Oh, wow. That is very thought-provoking. I feel I've always believed in change is constant and change is always good. But I would always say that, don't hold any strategy too close to your heart. Because if you think of it, if I believe in change is always true, I have to change the strategy I apply. So there have been times where I have to go back to the drawing board. I know it worked for a client. This was the right way to do things. But no, I have to remember that not all my strategies are good in every time period and for every client.
Yeah, that's very good advice, especially in SEO. With constant algorithm changes, you really have to not be attached too much to any one particular.
Yes.
It will change it on you. So where do you find your inspiration, where you're looking for what are those winds of change, and how can I be flexible to those? But do you find it at conferences and books, podcasts, social media? What
yes. I do think so that almost everybody in this industry, even though I've spent 20 years in this industry, I'm still learning. As long as we make sure that we are humble enough to know that industry changes, algorithm changes, things change, platforms change, CMS tools are different, analytic tools can be different, and we learn that keeps us on the right track. Now, where do we learn is a great step into it. Conferences, definitely. I would say webinars, very good. But I would also caution folks, because a lot of times I have found that there are many people who read an article or two or read a book or maybe attend a webinar and suddenly are very SEO savvy. And we've all encountered them in our path. So be kind to folks who may have partial information to be dangerous enough with a website, Also in the SEO community, I would say we have to be careful in terms of respecting each other. There are certain people that you should definitely follow, read about what they're suggesting. But at the same time, we as people who have had some experience should be candid enough to share our experiences down. When newcomers are coming, we should be able to say, okay, this is how we did it, whether it be a technical audit, whether it be a content strategy that we are thinking about, or we should definitely share more information. So networking is important, but be cautious of who you're following on Twitter or LinkedIn. There are certain names that you should follow and be careful in or stay away from black hat, gray hat. Anything that is very quick is probably not the best.
Yeah, good advice there. So if people want to connect with you, Tanu, how can they do it?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn enough. So you can look at me as Tanu Javeri and you'll find me there.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all your insights. Really appreciate you going through both at a basic level and digging into some of the details and helping us understand this difference between internal links, not only as the Googlebot journey, but also the user journey and how to kind of fit those together. Great podcast.
Thank you.
Cutting Edge Web Content Development is brought to you by ButterCMS. To find out how you can build better with Butter, stop wasting dev time, and free your marketers from your legacy CMS, visit ButterCMS.com. Also, make sure to search for Cutting Edge Web Content Development in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at ButterCMS, thank you for listening.